Okay, so welcome to lesson 2. This is basic photo corrections exercise. So go ahead and download the lesson files from lesson 2. And you should get, it should come down in lesson 2 zip like this. Simply just extract it. I'm going to again extract it into the same folder and then open up lesson 2. There should be 2 photos, Horse Team 1 and Old Gate 1. So I'm just going to simply right click on Horse Team 1. And I'm going to go down to open with, and I'm going to select Photoshop. Okay, so here you have the photo. It's obviously a carriage being pulled by a bunch of horses, and we're going to fix this photo up. This is an old glass plate. You can tell because there's a crack right through the middle, and what happens is they probably put the old glass negative on a piece of paper and make a contact print of it, and that's what this is. Because the old cameras were larger format, like 4x5 or 8x10, the negative was that big. So we're going to crop this image. So we're going to simply go to the crop tool. Notice that when you opened it, it was already at the crop tool. It could be, or you might have to hit the crop tool, which is located here. It's also the C key. So looking at the top menu bar up here, you'll see that it says delete cropped pixels. A quick tip, if you deselect that, when you crop the image, it'll actually keep the pixels outside there. So if you ever want to recrop it, it will allow you to recrop it because it keeps the images. By default, Photoshop has it checked where it deletes everything. In this case, we don't need to uncheck that, but it's just a quick tool. So I'm going to click on here, and by default it was set to square. I'm going to set it to a width, height, and resolution. So those are the 3 dimensions of a photograph. And then you'll see that there is a width, height, and resolution field up in the menu bar. So in the menu bar, we're going to type in 6.5 IN for inches. In the width, we're going to type in 5 IN for the height, and we're going to type in 150 pixels per inch for the resolution. So the next thing we're going to do before we crop it is we're going to straighten the photo. And you could straighten it manually by just eyeing it up, or you can use this icon. So if you look on top, there's a straighten icon up here. If you click on it and simply go from left to right like this, it will straighten the photo. It's great for horizon lines, like if you're looking to make sure that your water is completely straight in the photo, because water tends, if it's not straight, it looks funny. But this will straighten it. And then you can grab the corners So when you're done, you can hit either enter or double click. I find it's easier just to double click in the middle of the photo, and then it sets the crop. And a quick tip, if you need to adjust the crop after the crop rectangle disappears, you just go to edit to undo crop. And you can just try the whole thing again. I'm going to hit straighten, go here, straighten it, and then I'm going to adjust the corners. Then I'm going to hit Control-0 and it makes it full screen. Now there's another quick tip you can do is to quickly straighten photos and crop out the scan background. Like on that, you can go to File, Automate. Actually, let me undo this so you can see it. File, Automate, Crop and Straighten Photos. And there it gives you the full thing, even the edge that the edge of the negative that I'm looking for. Then I'm just going to pull in here and just get rid of that nasty edge. What happens on the edge of photos like that is the emulsion flakes off, and that's when you get that black dots, that's the emulsion flaking off. On the break here, the emulsion flaked off the negative. So I'm going to double click on that, and then there I have the image. See these two little lines, these lines here and here? You can obviously see someone taped the negative, and that's a piece of tape. So if the image dimensions are not displayed at the bottom over here, you can simply click on this arrow and make sure that it says image dimensions. Then you know it's 6.5 by 5 inches at 150 pixels per inch. So we're going to just go to File, and we're going to Save As. And I'm going to do Horse Team Working. I'll save it right back in Lesson 2. So next we're going to adjust the color and tone of this. Obviously this is a black and white photo, so we're not going to really adjust the color as much, but the tone we're definitely going to change. So you'll use curves and or levels in the adjustment layers to adjust this image. So curves and levels look very complex, but they're not really that complex. Now there are two ways to use curves and levels. The first way is the destructive way. And I'll just show you quickly about that. And I don't mind if you do it this way. I'm going to show you the other way because it's just a little bit, you can always go back and change things. So the more destructive way is to actually tone the photo itself. So if you click on Image, go to Adjustments, and you can select Curves or Levels. And here's your levels. And here are your curves. So again, there's a histogram here. Last week we talked briefly about that. But that's how you do that. So I'm going to show you the other way right now. The second way is we're going to use the adjustment panel. So here is the layer here. It's called the background. We're going to click on Adjustments, and then we're going to click on Curves. And the Curves is right here. So we'll click on that. And I'm going to break this out because it's a little bit small here. So I'm just going to bring this over here so you can see it a little bit better. So we're going to select a white point on the left side of the property panel. So here are the different eyedroppers, and we're going to select the white point. So we'll click on this one right here. So the white point tool defines what color value should be made white. So once defined, all other colors and tones shift accordingly. So when it's done correctly, you can remove a color cast and correct image brightness. So to set an accurate white point, click on an area of the image that you feel should be white, or the brightest neutral area of the image that contains detail, not blown out area like a sun or a lamp. So looking at the sky, there's a little bit of brightness here. In there, you can see a little bit of tone in the clouds. So I'm going to just and I use an old photography trick where I kind of squint to see where the brightest area is, and I think there's probably a pretty bright area right along in here. So I'm going to click on that, and you'll see how it changed slightly. Again, I'm going to go back. Here's before, and here's after. It's very subtle. Let me show you what happens if you click on something dark with a white point. So what it's going to do is going to make everything that color and brighter, completely white. So if I click on the horse, it's going to be really, really blown out. And then anything you see is actually darker than the point that I actually selected on. And you can see how your histogram changed here. So I'm going to go undo. I'm going to go back and find a real bright point. And there's one. So a quick note on this is color and tones edit in this section are relatively basic. So it's possible to do them all with only curves or levels, but typically curves is used for edits that are more specialized or complex. So in the adjustments panel, go back to adjustments here. I'm gonna pull this back and drop it back in here. Go back to adjustments. We're gonna select the levels. And again, I'm gonna pull that over here so we can see it. It's a little bit bigger. So the levels histogram in the properties panel here, here's the properties panel, here's the histogram. Display the range of dark and light values. So you learn more about working with levels in later lessons, but right now you just need to know that the left triangle represents the black point here, and the right triangle represents the white point. You can see it's white. And the middle triangle represents midtones. So that means the majority of this data is, and you can see the peak right here, is this white sky. A ton of this image is white, so a lot of it is here. Where if you go this way, you're making even more of it between the middle tone and bright white points, so it's going to make the photo brighter. If you go the other way, it's going to make it darker. I'm going to zero back out to 1. So 1 is the middle point. So we're going to drag the left triangle, the black point here, to where the significant shadow tones start to appear. So meaning, as we slide it over, we're going to bring it right to where the tones are starting to go up. So this point from here to here is pretty much dead space. But if we put it right at the beginning of the curve here, it's going to make it a little bit darker. And don't worry about it, because we're going to fix how dark the photo is. Then I'm going to drag the middle tone over to about 145, 146, 147, somewhere in there. So you can see that it starts to look a little bit better again. So now that you've adjusted the tones, you're going to you'll flatten the image so it's easier to work for while you touch it up. Again, I'm going to pull this back over here. And I'm going to go layer, flatten. You can do it here, or you can go over here to the layers and flatten image. So then it applies to them. So it's the same as doing it the other way. This just allows you to change it while you're doing it. So everything's applied to the layer, the background layer, so then the tone's a little bit better there. So then we're going to go ahead and hit save. And because we already named it, it's going to save over the original. So next we're going to use the spot healing brush tool. So there are several hairs and several spots throughout the sky that we can fix using the spot healing brushes. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So the healing brush works similar to the spot healing brush, except for it requires you to sample the source pixels before retouching, where the spot healing brush doesn't do that. So if you're, what I mean by sample is the healing brush takes pixels from one area and heals another area, where the spot healing brush analyzes that area and tries to fix, using the pixels around it, try to fix the problems. So the spot healing brush quickly removes blemishes and other imperfections. It samples the pixels around the retouched area, like I just said, and matches the texture, lighting, transparency, and shading of the sampled pixels to the pixels that are being healed. The spot healing brush is excellent for retouching blemishes and portraits, but it also works nicely if there's a uniform appearance in areas that you want to retouch, kind of like the sky here. And real good on the ground right here. So we're going to zoom in a little bit, and I'm just going to hit the Control Plus and zoom in, and I'm going to use the space bar and move it up, and I'm going to simply get it the way I want it. And then I'm going to go down to the spot healing brush tool, and if I right click on it, you can see all the tools. The spot healing brush is the top one. It's the J key for the shortcut key. Now we're going to make the brush a little bit bigger. You can click on the brush and slide the size back and forth, and I want to make it 25, so we'll just go down to 25 right here. So a quick note on this: if you close the window, if you use the bracket keys, which are next to the P key and next to the backslash key, one will make it bigger and one will make it smaller. And it does it by 5 pixel increments. And there's 25 right there. Also, I'm going to click on here. Hardness is 100%, just making sure. And then I'm going to make sure that content aware is selected in the type of healing that we're going to do. So that's aware of the content as you go. So to avoid creating seams or patterns, paint the spot healing brush closely around the area you're repairing. Don't try to cover more than what's necessary. That's pretty close right there. You don't want to go too far. So I'm gonna go back out a little bit. Actually, I'm gonna hit Control 0 or Command 0 on the Mac, and I'm just gonna highlight this area right here. Go nice and slow, right across this whole area. And then I'm going to let go. And you're going to notice that it heals pretty real close. Like, it looks pretty good. The only thing a little bit funky is around here. There, fix that. So it heals it really well. And then I'm going to go down to where the words are, and I'm just going to get rid of these because it doesn't really add much to it. And I'm doing this because I want it to look a little bit better. So now I'm going to go through and I'm going to fix all the little spots that are driving me crazy, like this tape over here. And this hair here, and more tape. And there's some boogers. What I mean by boogers is they look like they're pieces of dust. There's a couple scratches here. See anything else in the sky? Up here's one. A scratch right there. Okay. I could be doing this all day, so I'm going to call it good. And if you do a spot you don't like I just did not there, just hit Control Z or Command Z on a Mac to undo. Then I'm going to hit Control 0 or Command 0 on a Mac and make it full screen again. Once you get that done, go ahead and hit Save, and you got it saved again. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to apply a content aware patch. And we're going to use this patch tool to remove large unwanted element from the image. So you're going to use it on the person in the front right side of the image. We're going to remove this guy right here. So we're going to go over here and right click on the spot healing brush, and we're going to go down to the patch tool and we'll select that. And then next thing we're going to do is we're going to go up to the option bar, and the patch, instead of being normal, we're going to click on it and select content aware. And structure should be 4. So the structure menu determines how closely the patch reflects the existing image patterns. You can choose 1 to 7, 1 allowing the loosest adherence and 7 being the strictest. Then we're going to drag the patch tool around the man and his dust. It isn't necessary really to be exact, but try to draw a pretty close selection. And you want to zoom in on it to see it a little better, and that's what I'm going to do here. And the reason why you want his dust and maybe his shadow is because if there's dust there, there's a reason for that dust. So you want to make it look as realistic as possible. And once you get to the edge, you'll see the end. You let go, and there you have him. So you'll notice when you use the healing and content aware tools, sometimes they may produce an image that still means a little bit of manual touch-up. It isn't realistic to expect them to be perfect every time, but they're going to be pretty close, and then you can go in and change it. So then we're going to position our pointer back inside here, and you'll see that the tool went from a patch looking tool here to a patch tool with a little arrow. You click on it and simply drag. Oop, I don't want to go that way because I don't want another horse's head. I'm going to drag it over here and try to get it to match. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to match the fence post here. And I'm going to let go. And then just go to select and then deselect. And it looks pretty good. It's not bad. You can see a little bit of thing, but you're actually, zoomed quite a far in. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to repair some of these areas with the clone stamp tool. And what that does is the clone stamp tool clones pixels from one area and drops them into the area that you've selected. So it's a little complicated only because you have to use 2 hands to do this. You have to set a point and then you let go and things like that. So we're going to select the clone stamp tool, which is right here. And that's the S tool. We'll click on it. And then we're going to change this brush here. And I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to double click here because I want it to be 30. And then I'm going to click on the arrow again, and it's now set to 30. But I want a hardness of 0. So make sure hardness of 0 is set to 0. And we'll make sure that this says aligned. So this looks pretty good, but I'm going to actually clone this out. So I'm going to take an area from over here. So on the PC, you designate the area you want to take from by using the Alt key. So the Alt key then turns into a little bullseye. On the Mac, you're going to use the Option key. I'm going to click here, click once, and I'm going to go over here, and it's going to show me what's cloning. So as I go, it's going to clone. So as I click on it, it looks pretty good right there. It doesn't look like there's much there. Now if I want to go back and try it again, I'm going to designate a little bit different area this time. And I'm just going to go right here. And I just wanted to make sure that it's not a recurring pattern. So I could probably fix this area here if I wanted. And I'm going to probably use, let's match it. Probably use some of this here. So I'm kind of splitting hairs, but I just want to show you. So again, I go to the clone tool here. I set it with the Alt key or the Option key on the Mac. And then I'm going to go here and I'm going to just click on it. There. I think it looks pretty good. So quick tip, unlike the spot healing brush and patch tools you used earlier, the clone stamp tool doesn't try to make the edit seamless. It simply copies the pixels from one source to the other. And then, so it's a little bit more of a manual process to make it look good. So each time you click the clone stamp tool, it begins with a new source point in the same relationship to the point that you started. So that is, if you begin painting, as you go farther and farther, it'll keep that same distance apart. So when you click on it, it'll always be aligned, and that's that aligned option right here. So if you deselect aligned, and every time you lift up on the click, it'll go snap back to that original spot and start snapping, start cloning that way. So that's great if you're going to keep, you want to do this grass and you want to keep making grass all along here. You would just let go of the mouse. It would snap back to the original. That's only if aligned is not selected. So go ahead and save your work again. We're going to go File, Save. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to sharpen the image. So the last task you might want to do before you retouch anything is sharpen the image. There are several ways to sharpen an image in Photoshop, but Smart Sharpen Filter gives you the most control because sharpening can emphasize artifacts that you'll maybe want to remove first. So we're going to zoom into about 400%. So that's right here. So you can actually click on here and change it to 400. And then I'm going to use the space bar again, and I'm going to zoom in on so I can see the guys here. Then I'm going to go to Filter, down to Sharpen, to Smart Sharpen. So you can drag the inside of this window wherever you want to look at. You can also zoom in here. And you can also unclick Preview. So Preview is a preview of what the sharpening is going to look like. So if you uncheck it, this is the original image, and here is the sharpened. So you can choose to remove lens blur, Gaussian blur, or motion blur in the dialog box here. So we're going to select Gaussian blur, and then we're going to drag the slider amount to 100%. I find it easier just to sometimes type it in. Then we're going to drag the radius slider to about 1, which is it should be set to already, and reduce noise is going to be 20%. So here's the original. Here's what the new preview looks like. So a couple things about radius in here. So radius value determines the number of pixels surrounding the edge pixels after sharpening. The higher the resolution, the higher the radius setting should be. So this isn't a super high res photo because you can see the pixelation, so you don't want radius to be too high. So if you jack it up here, you're going to see it really changes it. So I'm going to go back again to 1.0. So when you're satisfied with the results, just simply hit OK. And we'll go back to here and see the image. Looks pretty good. We're going to go File, Save As, and instead of typing working, we're going to highlight working and call it Final. And we're going to save it back in that same folder. Then I want you to turn this in, this is one of the exercises. Now I want you to go back out and open up the old gate photo, and I want you to fix all the different things with this. Obviously the photo is a little bit on the flat side. It means there's not a lot of blacks, not a lot of whites, so you're definitely not going to have to fix that. And you'll want to fix the wrinkle. And then once you're done with that, feel free to turn that in as well. So you'll have two photos that you turn in. One would be the horse team final, and the other one will be the Old Gate 1 final. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and have a great week, and talk to you next week.